ladies and gentlemen, the powers that be are actively now making their move to take total control over the food supply, just as they are most things right now. This is a complete blitzkrieg across all vectors of society and resources. And food is the one area that's not nearly being discussed enough. And so let's talk about that. Because whereas the meat shortages and the food shortages, the supply chain interruptions about which this channel has been warning for months and years, in fact, now, are now playing out. They are now being brought into the spotlight for the public's eye to see, with Tyson Foods taking out full-page ads in multiple publications yesterday about the fact that explaining that the food supply chain is broken. And then with today, President Trump coming out and issuing an executive order mandating that these meat processing plants that have been shutting down reopen and they keep serving up American foods. People's attention is very much on this. It's suddenly very much in the limelight. And so when a problem is served up on a platter like that to the public, generally it's because there's also a solution that's being suggested for people, no matter how unpalatable or totalitarian that solution may seem. Given enough pain with the problem, people generally accept it, right? We've all heard about this Hegelian dialectic that's playing out right now. And so we don't have time to somehow celebrate that these predictions have come to pass, that all of the horrible things that we anticipated would happen, given the supply chain crumbling, is now happening. There's millions of livestock producers are just in shambles around the country. But would you believe that the DoD, the military, is right now deploying an artificial intelligence agent and hooking it up to all of the logistics information from the supply chain, all of the smart farming data from John Deere and all those smart farming appliances, and most concerningly, right down to every retail purchase at the store. They need complete information awareness of all resources, even and especially food. And that has been deployed now. It's being announced publicly. This is not a conspiracy theory. And we need to talk about this. I'm Christian, and this is the Iceagefarmer channel. And as we've been anticipating, the National Guard has been deployed now. The military is involved with serving food to Americans now. You can see these pictures of the National Guard deployed to Texas, in Cold Spring, also in New Braunfels here, armed guards deploying, giving you your food. This is grocery shopping in 2020. Would you like fries with that? Here's an armed carrier unloading food to the Salvation Army. This is in Ohio. Here it is in Delaware, National Guard. Here it is in South Carolina, National Guard issuing friendly groceries to you. I mean, this scene is playing out in Arizona. This scene is playing out around the nation right now. The military has become involved with guarding the food supply and ensuring order around people picking up their food. But it's not just the military being involved. You know, grocery stores, as we expected, are now having trouble getting meat and keeping it on the shelves. Rationing is being discussed. They're using different cuts. All the things we talked about are playing out. And the word that I'm getting from producers, there's just no way to adequately summarize or convey to you the intensity and the emotion, but the gravity of the situation. Here from one producer I heard from, who says, quote, "On the pig side of things, the closest analogy I can think of is that we're in a car, we have crashed through the guardrails, we're sailing off of the cliff right now. We haven't felt the impact of the landing, we're just starting to fall. But it's clear their trajectory. We know where we're going, and we're going into food shortages, protein shortages, and food shortages completely. It's not just the millions of livestock, of chickens, of calves euthanized, of hogs who've been aborted. Those are just the livestock. It's also the producers that are getting slaughtered right now. Here from National Journal, the pandemic exposes inefficiencies in agriculture. Industry leaders see a bloodbath on the horizon for producers and distributors. And it's a war on farmers and ranchers and on your ability to produce food in any context other than their lab-grown meat, other than their totalitarian society and their complete control over you. And here it is, right? That's the only investments that are being made right now. Impossible Foods CFO says, hey, we're about to bring our fake meat into 1,000 more retail stores, the same ones that can't get real meat. Impossible Foods, of course, funded to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars by Bill Gates and by other billionaires. We've talked a lot about those people before. We don't have time to go back into Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates today. I just want to point out it's not just the meat packing facilities. We've also seen large orchards that are being affected by the virus, with half of the staff at a central Washington orchard testing positive for COVID-19. Even though they were completely asymptomatic, now the operation is considering shutting down because you can't just keep working when you've got this completely asymptomatic virus in your midst. Shut down. But it's not really the crops as much. Although if we have problems getting harvest labor, this is going to really hit home. But mostly the agenda right now is around those meat packing facilities. And again, we see continuing the trend of other countries shutting down their exports, instituting what the UN is calling protectionist, nationalist policies. In other words, just making sure that they can feed their people more. But as these full-page ads go out, and as TYSON says, yeah, there's a complete breakdown, we need to offer help to producers here so that they can get rid of their animals because we can't process them. The USDA, this is a hidden battle, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't see anybody else talking about. The USDA came out and said, we need to open these packing facilities just for slaughter. Never mind the food. We don't need the food. With congressmen actively warning food shortages are coming. Massey's been saying this for weeks now. But look at this. Here, the House Ag Chairman, Peterson, Democrat, Minnesota, was talking to reporters about how we need to reopen the JBS plant in Minnesota just to euthanize 13,000 hogs a day. Not to slaughter them, not for food, just as a killing machine. We're also considering getting other plants engaged in the destruction of the United States food supply. We're down 700,000 head right now a week. Yes, that's true. And it's not just the big packers that have been approached by the USDA, by the criminal USDA, that we have documented lying about the severity of the crop losses last season. We know the USDA is part of the Department of War, it always has been. Here from Schultz Family Farms, it's not just the big plants either. The USDA was also asking our local butcher if he'd be willing to kill hogs. We'll just bring in some pigs, you kill them for us? We don't want the meat. That's ridiculous. The USDA is trying to make this as bad as possible. They are trying to create the Holodomor 2.0 to starve the people out. That's how the communists always get their power. They institute these man-made famines. Look at the Ukraine situation. Look at China. They always work this way. And so when Trump today issues this executive order, this is a direct response. This is the USDA trying to kill as many of our livestock as possible, using the very facilities that are supposed to be shut down under guise of the virus, but it's somehow okay to open them just to kill off the livestock, just to destroy your food. That's fine. Don't serve it up to us now. So that is what made this happen. This is Trump responding to their attempt to completely gut the whole protein sector of the United States. And now we'll see the left will dress this up as him saying that his hamburgers are more important than people's lives. I expect this to be completely politicized, hyper-partisaned, the same way that they're doing with everything else right now. We know how the media plays. But I hope this was illustrative of what's actually playing out right now. The USDA, like many of these governors, are trying to make this as bad as possible. They want people to die. They want people to starve. And they want to blame this guy. They want to blame everything. And then they'll bring in their fake meat and their total control and their AI systems that we're about to talk about here in a second. Because just as I had predicted also a few months ago that these grocery stores are going to become AI commissaries of the prison planet, now we see it happening. It still sounds outlandish, even though it's being publicly rolled out and implemented right now. Let's dig into this article from the Defense One. Pentagon will use artificial intelligence to predict panic buying and find hotspots and then manage resource allocations. In other words, the computer's going to decide, based on your social credit score, whether or not you get food this week. What does your ration card look like? Well, ask the computer. Were you doing your social distancing? Maybe you'll get a piece of meat. Did you break your quarantine? Yeah, we're not going to even feed you this week. No, you're not going to get your digital dollars. Here's the article. This prototype, deployed by the DoD, can predict trends in supply and demand in infection down to the zip code. The coronavirus has revealed that just-in-time supply lines don't always operate as they should, right? There's the problem, reaction, solution of the dialectic. Now that we see that there are food shortages, now that this has happened, well, now we can roll out our AI complete takeover. Fortune 500 companies use AI to improve their ability to deal with things. Why shouldn't NORCOM, U.S. Northern Command? And so, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center has a prototype AI tool that uses a wide variety of data streams to predict hotspots of the virus and also to find logistics and supply chain issues. Quote, "You have to be looking a little into the future," says the CTO of the JAIC, dubbed Salus for the Roman goddess of health and well-being. Although that's also the goddess of the health of the state, which is a big difference there. The tool can work on a scale as wide as the entire nation, but it can also drill right down into specific zip codes and even stores. Initially, we deployed it to work with masks and ventilators, but, quote, "the next question was really resource allocations, like food. How are we going to decide? We've only got so much food now. How do we pick who gets it? Where are we going to send it? Do we prioritize the cities so that they don't riot over the rural areas?" They're already doing that. The process for this AI starts with finding as much data as possible. A lot of the information comes from public sources like census and neighborhood data, but other data sources come from private-public partnerships. It's made available. We can't tell you about those partnerships because we have NDAs with them, right? Non-disclosure agreements. Keep the government from telling you how they're learning everything about you. But, quote, "the hope is that if we do this right, we can make this the platform for all supply and logistics services." You just plug in whatever data set and the algorithm works just the same. It may also become a part of the Joint All-Domain Command and Control, or JADC2, a massive effort to digitally interlink weapons, vehicles, and personnel. We might consider it. Maybe we'll put in your food supply chain data into our weapons system, our CNC command and control system. I mean, after all, we can confirm, quote, "Project Salus is a prototype for that, JADC2, and ultimately it does perform a function that enables a portion of the whole concept." So yes, it's a necessary component of our complete world control AI that we're building. Maybe we'll plug it in. I mean, the language here is just stunning. They literally admit that this is part of their AI takeover, but then they say, maybe we'll plug it in, just maybe it's a prototype. So they're completely downplaying it here, but hopefully this is illustrated to you what's going on here. This is a public rollout of total information awareness of everything from the smart farming to the eye in the sky, looking down from satellites and getting a view of the fields of what you're growing, to the motion of things through the supply chain. We've talked about the blockchain, food supply chain they were interacting, and now straight down to retail motions and retail purchases at the individual level. And I guarantee this will tie into those. We talked about the carbon allowance. You'll only be allowed to buy 4 pieces of meat because otherwise you exceed your carbon threshold, your carbon allowance for food. This is the total information awareness that enables all of these things. And there's no coincidence in the fact that this is being rolled out at the same time as the digital ID, as the immunization passport, of all of this bid for total control of society. So naturally it applies to the food supply chain as well, to what you're eating. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why growing your own food and saving seeds, doing things that are out of their awareness, is anathema to their totalitarian takeover. They cannot tolerate that. Using herbs as medicine? No. No, you need to come to our system, to our doctors. Saving seeds? No. You need to come get our GMO Terminator seeds. Or better yet, just buy from the AI commissaries. See how they are corralling humanity into a very small pen. In other words, the New World Order right now is serving us up a big shit sandwich on food supply, and we're all going to have to take a bite. I'd like to recommend that you watch James Corbett's analysis of the World Economic Forum's description of the total control they want over people's passports, the digital passport, blockchain-based. Everywhere you go, every hotel you stay at gets written in so that they can do pre-crime analysis. All of these things that are being rolled out right now. Of course, it applies to the food. And this is what it looks like when you apply it to food. So what is the response to that? Well, again, anything that they can't control, any counter-economic activity, trading, bartering, sharing tools, sharing skills, skill shares, sharing seeds, planting seeds, growing food yourself, none of that is within their ability to track you. And that's why you've already seen governors start the trajectory that way, start to make it illegal to buy seeds online. A lot of that's being rolled back, but it's just a question of when it goes into effect. If not this crisis, then the next one. The trajectory is clear. And so too then is it clear how we must respond to this massive consolidation of control and information and everything being consolidated and centralized. The response is to decentralize. Decentralized food production means everyone's growing. It means you're growing food, I'm growing food. If your food dies, I've got seeds for you to start again. It was how humanity has always done it. It's how we've always gotten through. Neighbors taking care of each other, communities. And it's why I started this site, thevictoryseed.org, because we all need victory gardens. It's clear right now the weapon for this takeover is food. And so just as you've heard, America could never be invaded by force because there would be a gun behind every blade of grass. Well, we need to do the same thing. If their weapon now is food, then we need to know there is a victory garden in every home. That is the best defense. So thevictoryseed.org is my effort to encourage people to start growing their own food. In fact, as this individual did here, I have plants, I have plants going everywhere I can, more than I have room to grow in my own garden, because when reality starts setting in for my neighbors, I will be there with starts that are ready to go into their gardens and help them grow food for all of us. Because we are all in this together. And as people figure out, it's obvious, like I said, these problems are now being brought into the public awareness. And so as this plays out, more and more people are going to be looking to grow their own food. And that's why we need now to be planting the victory seeds so that our neighbors can start growing as they become aware and so that we can feed our communities going forward. Thevictoryseed.org currently has some instructions on how to grow potatoes, because those are the simplest and most calorie-dense effort. And I'm going to add squash and corn and beans, some of the other staples that are super easy to get started. It's also got this planting calendar tool where you can pick your grow zone and then see based on that when your windows are to be planting and harvesting various things. So this is a shortcut to get people who are just waking up to the fact that we need to be growing our own food and get them working on Team Grow as quickly as possible. Please check out thevictoryseed.org. Let me know what you think of it, how we could help more people start growing more food more rapidly. That's the goal. I'm not even tied to this site. If there's a better way to get people growing quickly, please let me know. Ladies and gentlemen, the AI total takeover of our food supply has been announced now. And it still sounds ridiculous, even as I say it, even as I see it announced. It just sounds outlandish to say. Even so does saying meat shortages, even though that's happening right now. And that's a function of all of these things playing out so ridiculously quickly that we almost don't have time to adjust to the new reality and respond to it. But here we are. This is happening, and it is happening quickly, and we must respond to it, or else we will lose everything. And the generations that come after us will have to eat Soylent Green, and they will think that's all there ever was. Please spread the word about this total takeover of our food and of everything that's playing out right now. This is just one component of it, and we all need to be doing everything we can to build economies and grow food away from their central control. Thanks for watching. Spread the word.